Absolutely love the South Australian coastline. There's so many epic beaches and just good spots to set up and go for a surf and camp and fish, and it's just such a beautiful coastline that so many people don't know about. For me, the feeling riding the wave is like no other. It's something you can't get in any other sport. It's always different. I mean, I think that's what makes it so addictive. I was living on the west coast of South Australia in Port Lincoln, surfing 3 or 4 times a week. And then, yeah, Anzac Day 2015, my whole life got flipped upside down. Probably been surfing for about an hour. And yeah, then got hit. Which felt like being hit by a truck at the time, and yeah, soon realised I was being attacked by a 4.5, 5 metre great white shark. It hit me so hard it kind of launched me out of the water in its mouth. It then shook me violently underwater until it then ripped my left leg off above the knee, and that's sort of the only way I got away from the shark. The shark had my left leg and my board and my leg rope, and it was just bobbing around us like a fishing float. And yeah, that's when I sort of thought, you know, this is it. This is actually the end of my life.
Huge white pointers are unpredictable, terrifying and ferocious monsters.
Some of them are huge, up to almost 7 metres long. They've got these big teeth and they eat things as big as humans whenever they want to.
A big white pointer is the trophy of a lifetime for a select few lucky big game fishermen.
Better you kill the shark than it kill you.
They're an eating machine. I don't feel really guilty because we might save somebody's life.
Now, the South Australian government is poised to ban fishing for great whites.
25 years ago, the declining trend indicated that white sharks were at risk of extinction, so we protected them.
A lot of mates of mine who are pro fishers are seeing a lot of sharks.
The state's 3rd deadly attack this year.
The 6th shark attack in South Australian waters in little more than 6 months.
Fisheries should attempt to terminate the shark responsible for the attack.
You just can't kill things from the sake of fear.
We started protecting them and then we just left it at that. Sometimes I feel like we as surfers and ocean users are just left as cannon fodder.
The Neptune Islands has a rich and healthy ecosystem with large meadows of seagrass and reef supporting a broad diversity of fish, seabirds, dolphins, seals, which in turn attract the white sharks that feed on all these prey. The Neptune Islands is also one of the only places in the world when you can get white sharks all year round, and this is why we come here to collect samples and tag them to better understand the movement, migration, but also to collect the samples that we use to assess the population size of these animals. We do have an estimate of the population size of white shark, but the range is actually quite broad, going from about 1,200 to a bit more than 3,000 adult white sharks. However, we don't have that estimate for the total population. So what we do is to try to collect a bit of muscle sample, a bit of skin of the sharks. We can then use that in a genetic analysis that, through some complicated mathematics and modeling, can estimate the number of sharks in Australia. This is an acoustic tag that we deploy on the white sharks to estimate the residency of sharks at the Neptunes. But we also have a number of acoustic receivers deployed throughout Australia so that when the sharks leave the Neptune Islands, we can also understand where these sharks are going. And And one of the things we've discovered is that these sharks are undertaking huge migrations and move very vast distances as far as Mingaloo Reef or even the Coral Sea of Queensland. But that's one of the reasons why it's so hard to estimate the number of white sharks. From a biological perspective, the species are now being protected for 25 years. You would expect that the population is slowly recovering. Probably not to the extent of what some people think. We're not going to see a doubling or tripling in the white shark number. That's purely because biologically they're unable to increase that quickly.
White sharks have been hunted for years as big game trophies.
He reeled in this massive white pointer. She weighed in at 1,520 kilograms.
Back in the 70s or even 80s, there was a lot of targeted fishing for white sharks. And sometimes some individuals could catch several white sharks in one day.
Because the teeth were so valuable. You know, you can get $1,000 for a great white shark teeth. We didn't see any for months and months and months and times. And they were getting less and less. My name's Rodney Fox, and in 1963 I was badly bitten by a great white shark.
All I remember is this big thing pushing me through the water. And it seemed to let go a bit when I pushed my hand up at it, and it still wouldn't let go.
Surgeons needed multiple blood transfusions and more than 450 stitches to repair the wounds of what is considered one of the world's worst non-fatal shark attacks.
When I was in hospital, I saw that there was this incredible fear and hatred towards sharks. And in those days, in '63, there was a saying, the best shark's a dead shark, just kill them all. And I didn't think that was right. The ocean is filled with so many beautiful creatures, from the dolphins and the seals to the fish life to the whales. It's amazing. And nature has designed our oceans with the sharks in it, and to take them out would be a disaster. And I had to try and talk about it for many years about how you just can't kill things for the sake of fear. In 1999, a great thing happened. The Commonwealth protected great white sharks.
So now that the species is protected, it basically means that it's prohibited to interfere, harass, injure, or kill the species. Even though there's an increased number of sightings of white sharks, there is currently no scientific evidence showing a recovering population. But even if the population had recovered, it doesn't explain the cluster of bite that we recently had in South Australia.
Shark attack. A surfer still missing after a suspected encounter with a monster great white.
55-year-old Todd Gendel was surfing when he was pulled off his board by what's believed to be a great white shark. A woman mauled by a shark in the southeast.
Serious injuries after a shark attack at Port Noarlunga, south of Adelaide.
Rising fears. A teen killed by a shark in South Australia, the state's third deadly attack this year.
15-year-old Kai Cowley was attacked by what's believed to be a great white shark.
Murray Adams is recovering in the Royal Adelaide after he was attacked by a shark at Blacks on Tuesday.
The Eyre Peninsula town of Elliston is in shock after a well-known local man was taken by a shark.
46-year-old Simon Baccanello, a teacher affectionately known to his students as Mr. B, was attacked by a shark yesterday at Walker's Rocks.
The first attack was when we lost Simon. So Simon was a school teacher. He was new in town. He was really just adored by his students. He just fit in so lovely. He was just stoked to be here. We were surfing with him when he was taken, and that just rocked all of us.
One of the guys paddled out from the beach and said that there's been a fatal attack at Walker's. I just remember my heart just dropped. Like, you know that it's someone that's close to you.
I think everyone experienced it alongside of us when this happened, from losing a family member or losing a community member, just having something as horrific as that happening, and everyone's affected. There's not a single person that's not affected by that. And then with the spate of attacks going on after that, every time you kind of felt safe again, or you kind of felt like you could breathe again, there was another attack. And then in January of 2024, when everyone was just trying to find their feet again, we had another non-fatal attack.
Elliston school teacher Murray Adams is recovering in the Royal Adelaide after he was attacked by a shark.
The reason that we live out here so far away from everything is because of the surf. You know, everyone always says that these are such isolated incidences, and your likelihood of ever being involved in a shark attack is, you know, slim to none. And then when it happens, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and you just think, like, this doesn't feel too slim to none anymore.
We don't know what happened in South Australia in that summer of 2023-2024. It was an unusual cluster of shark bites, but we're actually seeing this kind of cluster of bites regularly happening, not just in Australia, but across the world. In the early 2010s, there was a cluster of bites of Margaret River.
There have been 5 fatal shark attacks in Western Australia in 10 months.
In the mid-2010, there was a cluster of bites in New South Wales.
The spate of attacks in one of the most populated beach-going regions of Australia.
In the late 2010s, there was a cluster of bites in Queensland around Sydney Harbour.
3 shark attacks in 2 months, one of them fatal. Scientists are struggling to explain the Sydney Harbour cluster. Why here and why now?
It was maybe just a matter of time for something similar to happen in South Australia. And not 2 bites are similar. Sometimes it might be this mistaken identity, realize it's not a seal, only bite once and not again. Other times it might be more motivated by hunger and actually consume the person. And obviously these are very traumatizing events for the people witnessing that. While the events of the 2023-2024 summer were tragic, the number of shark bites in South Australia is actually not increasing. If you look at the data over the last 10 years, there were no shark bites for 7 of those years.
I've got mixed feelings about the great white shark, and I do think that conservation as a whole is important, and I think we as humans should be responsible for that. But I also think we really need to take into account the toll of conservation and what is the human impact of it, and the human impact is people get killed.
The whole point of protecting a species is to ensure population recovery. So it's only logical to think that if the recovery is successful, we're going to get to a point we're going to keep getting more and more shark bites unless we increase the amount of mitigation measures we use.
We started protecting them and then we just left it at that, and we said that that's good enough, and I don't think we've really done enough to follow up on what is happening since we've protected them. And sometimes I feel like we as surfers and ocean users are just left as cannon fodder. So it's put to the council to, after an attack, to be able to go out and dispatch of that animal, or to lay drum lines or engage fishermen in the area to try and take that shark out of the system.
I can definitely agree that there is a lot of support behind a shark cull. I'm personally hesitant to call for a cull without proper data, but there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time in the water, and a lot of mates of mine who are pro fishers are seeing a lot of sharks.
There's different type of shark culling that's been proposed over time. One of which is to target the shark that was responsible for the bite. But there's plenty of situations when the species responsible for bites are not the typical resident species, they're more of a migratory type of sharks, where just removing individuals in one area is not going to make as much of a difference. So to get to that level of a risk reduction, you need to kill more than one shark. But is it more than 5 sharks, more than 10 sharks, more than 100 sharks? That number of how many sharks you need to kill or cull to get to a point when you're substantially reducing the risks, we don't actually know what that number is.
I'm Dr. Brianna Lebusk. I'm an environmental science lecturer at UniSA. I love my work. I still can't believe that I can say that most of my job is watching shark movies and researching sharks. My interest is in why are people afraid of sharks, how do people perceive the risk of sharks, and how can that impact conservation? We definitely think there is such a thing as the Jaws effect. Some of the policies around the idea of culling sharks and sort of if a shark gets a taste for humans, then they have to be killed because they're going to keep biting humans. There's no scientific evidence that sharks do that, but that's what the whole Jaws premise is about. So we think that that's one of the reasons that shark culls actually exist, is because of the storyline of Jaws. So firstly, we know there is an evolutionary purpose to be afraid of sharks. It makes sense for humans to be afraid of animals that can hurt them, back from, our ancestors thousands of years ago. We hear about them really frequently in the news. We think they're more common than they are. But interestingly, another thing that can distort our perception of risk is the control we have over a situation. So we perceive the risk to be higher if we have no control over it. It's the classic reason that people are more afraid of planes than driving. Same thing in the ocean. We don't have control over that situation, so we perceive the risk to be higher.
And it's true that for most people, the likelihood of being bitten by a shark is absolutely tiny. Having said that, for those people that live on the ocean every day, the people that go surfing every morning, the commercial abalone divers, that risk is actually much greater than for the average person. Not every mitigation measure is going to be suitable everywhere. But here's a couple of examples of some tools that can be used in remote locations like Elliston. We have here an electric deterrent which transmits a very strong pulse that overwhelms the sensory organs of sharks, and this has shown to deter sharks and stop sharks from biting in 60% of the case. Here we've got acoustic tracking technology which can detect a shark in proximity of this receiver and send a notification to people on their phone to tell them that a shark is in the area. This is a shark enclosure, which is very different to shark nets, which are used on the East Coast. They both aim to reduce the overlap between people and sharks, but they do so in very different ways. The shark enclosure provides a barrier between sharks and people, while shark nets aims to catch and intercept sharks. This one here is just one example of the different types of shark enclosure. This one is attached to a jetty, but you can also have enclosure that goes on beaches, on corner of beaches, or even in closed bays. As long as people go into the ocean, there's always going to be a potential risk of a shark bite. But we now have enough knowledge and technology to minimize those risks so that people can continue enjoying the ocean activity and have that ocean lifestyle that Australians are so famous for.
I don't want my experience to deter anyone getting back into the ocean. The ocean has given me so much, and it still does, and I don't want my story to deter anyone getting in the ocean. From what's happened the last 12 to 18 months, it's certainly done that for some people. But hopefully I can find peace with it and get back in the water at some stage. I know how hard it can be.
With the shark attacks, it just changes the whole relationship with the ocean. It's like this source of trauma instead of this source of therapy. It's so wild how much the ocean has been imperative to our recovery as well, and like getting back to normal life. When we weren't surfing, you can feel this huge absence in your life. Like, what do? You got to ride your dirt bike around or find another hobby. So yeah, getting back into the water, and just that is what getting back to normal life looks like for us too.